Have you ever played a game that was truly something special? I'm sure you're thinking, well, of course I have. There's a bunch of games I think are special. You might think to yourself, there's games I played as a kid that I'm super nostalgic for and replay all the time. It's been special since my childhood. Or you might think, this game that came out just a few years ago is one of the best designed games ever made. Of course this game is special, how could it not be? Well, you're right, of course. Childhood favorites and masterclasses of game design are indeed special, but those kinds of games aren't what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about games that aren't flawlessly designed, or games I even played as a child. As the title of this video implies, the special games I'm talking about are special in a way that's indescribable. So here I go, trying to describe them. The first game I want to talk about is a Metroidvania. Perhaps the greatest Metroidvania to ever bless this earth with its presence. And that game is not Hollow Knight. No, the game I want to talk about is Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight. Or for brevity's sake, Momodora 4. This game was released on March 4th, 2016, and was purchased by me in June of the same year. I was 18 at the time, which I'm just now realizing is a lot older than I thought I was back then. I don't know, I guess in my brain I'm perpetually 14 or something. I think I'm gonna die soon. Please ease my eternal suffering by smashing that subscribe button. Anyway, I bring up my age because I want to reiterate the fact that I was not in my childhood when I first played Momodora 4. But this game instilled in me a sense of childlike wonder. There are a lot of reasons for this feeling. The game's combat, music, level design, exploration and progression, and of course the thing I'd like to talk about first in detail, the story. The narrative of this game is actually very simple on its surface. You play as a priestess who is sent to the Kingdom of Karst to stop a curse from affecting her homeland. And that's really all you get for the whole game. You learn a few more details, but the details really just serve as guidance for the player, giving them insight into what their short-term and long-term goals should be. Your interactions with NPCs in general are pretty limited. You're a lone priestess from a faraway land. No backup or support to speak of. You're even a silent protagonist, so opportunities for conversation are few and far between. As a player, you feel the weight of loneliness. I really vibe with this sense of isolation. It evokes a feeling akin to melancholy, but layered with some sort of peace and acceptance? I don't know, the feeling is special, but in a way that's hard to explain. The next major pillar of this game's special sauce is the exploration and progression. In order to beat the game, you need to collect 4 special relics in the world before you can enter the final area and kill the final boss. Each relic gives the player a new power that helps in both exploration and combat. And you're free to collect them in basically any order you so desire. In fact, the whole game is designed in a way that feels very freeing. No matter what direction you go in, you're unlikely to find a true dead end. Instead, you'll probably end up in a place you weren't really expecting to be. A lot of games make a big deal out of getting to new areas. Maybe you have to get the right key, specific power-up, or kill a specific boss in order to make progress. In Momodora 4, you make progress by simply walking around and discovering new things. This makes the world feel so much bigger than it actually is. It's like you could walk forever and keep finding new locations. Or if not, discover something new, come full circle, and wind up in a place you haven't seen for hours. I absolutely adore this approach to world design, but beyond what I've already said, I can't really explain why. And I don't think my words have yet done justice to describe my feelings. I have a lot less to say about the combat and the music in this game. The combat is fine. Your character has a basic 3-hit combo in melee, a chargeable bow and arrow for a ranged option, and as you play, you also discover active items that can be used. These basically operate like spells. Most of them are some sort of projectile attack, but there's also buffs and utility items. These active items spice up an otherwise very simple combat system and give it a lot of variety. Even though the combat is simple, it's everything it needs to be. The attack sound effects are crunchy. Enemies have animations for taking damage. And of course, the player gets a fancy dodge roll. For as little as I have to say about the combat, I have even less to say about the music. It's peaceful and charming, sometimes eerie. Again, it's exactly what it needs to be to aid in the lonely atmosphere this game oozes. I actually have a lot more to say about the music in the second game I want to talk about today, Northern Journey. But before I can talk about the music, I need to set the stage for what this game actually is. I guess you would call Northern Journey a first-person shooter? But that description feels completely wrong. Let's start by exploring the setting of the game. The game takes place in Norway? At the very least, it's set in a place inspired by Norway. Lush trees, steep foothills, rivers and lakes, oh my. I love this setting, but I wanted to wrap back around to it later. For now, it's important to know that a lot of this game is spent walking around this beautiful Norwegian environment. It's probably fair to say that half of this game is spent walking from point A to point B. So it's a good thing this game is so appealing to look at. The other half of the game is the combat. I said at the start of the section that this game is technically a first-person shooter, but leaving the description there would be doing the gameplay a huge disservice. For starters, given the setting, it wouldn't really make sense to be running around with shotguns, missile launchers, and BFGs. The weapon selection is much more fitting for the naturalistic environment you find yourself in. Your first weapon in Northern Journey isn't a pistol or a combat knife or anything like that. Your first weapon is a sling. Not a slingshot, a sling! A weapon that can whip really small rocks at people from far away. And okay, I gotta take a brief aside to talk about this fucking sling. This might be the most satisfying weapon I've ever used in a video game, ever. So the way it works is you pull it out and you start swinging the rock over your head. The rock will deal more damage the more time you let the weapon swing, so you need to wait for a bit before firing it off. But the rock isn't a hit scan, it's a projectile that you need to line up and account for both travel time and drop off. Something the reticle helps with, but it's no walk in the park to land a shot with this thing. And the sound effects! Just listen to this baby purr!
Nice.
I need to come to sound design at a later point, but for now, I need you to understand that the sound of this weapon popping off is like listening to a choir of angels. Not so brief aside done about the sling, I can get back to the combat in general. The weapons are pretty much all things you'd find in D&D. There's bows, crossbows, throwing axes, that kind of stuff. All of these weapons are projectile-based, and generally have a pretty slow rate of fire. This makes aiming a very important skill to master. Because of your lack of ammo, you can only carry a few shots from each weapon, and you find more ammo scattered around the world Doom style. The developer must have put some serious effort into balancing the ammo drops, because I never run out, but I'm also not usually full up. The enemy types you fight range from skeletons to giant insects, and also spiders. A lot of spiders. Arachnophobes, be warned. For me, anyway, the combat isn't really the driving force of this game. I'm happy it's here, but walking around the world is where this game shines brightest. Speaking of which, you might be wondering what purpose there is to walking around the world besides soaking in the visuals. Well, the answer is, of course, to collect upgrades. Also, to stay topped off on your ammo and health, but those pickups are usually on the main path. The good stuff, though, the permanent upgrades, you need to go hunting for. There are a few kind of upgrades in Northern Journey. The most common will be red flasks that will increase your max HP by 1. That doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of the game, you're going to end up nearly doubling your health. The second, and in my opinion most important upgrade, are orange potions that increase the max amount of ammo you can carry. You will also find consumable health potions that you can carry with you and use in an emergency. That's really all there is to optional exploration as it relates to upgrades. At least that's all I'm able to describe with my limited brain function. That's just as well, because now I can talk about one of my favorite aspects about the game, the sound and music. The game sounds hauntingly beautiful, while also maintaining a sense of whimsy. The UI makes this adorable bubbly sound when hovering over elements. I have no idea how the dev came up with this, but it's perfect! It's so satisfying to just hover your mouse over menu options really fast. I've already talked about the sound effects for the sling, and the sound effects for the other weapons are also solid as hell. But like everything else in this game, the best part of the sounds are unrelated to combat. Instead, the best sounds come from exploring the world. The ambience, the weather, the wind, the water, the nature.
But that's not all. The music in this game, holy shit, this is such a unique sound. I don't even know what genre to describe these pieces as. Just have a listen. It's beautiful and weird. It's like lo-fi druid hip-hop.
For all the yapping I've done about the combat, exploration, and soundscape, I don't really care about any of that stuff when it comes to Northern Journey. The reason I love this game so much and think it's so special is because I just like being here. I love the way it looks. The art style is masterful. I think games like this are significantly more appealing than AAA photorealism. But more than the art style, the environment and setting draws me in like a hypnotic siren. As stated before, this game is set in a northern land based off of Norway, a very beautiful part of the world. I mean, just look at screenshots of Norway on Google. I love the landscapes here. In fact, it reminds me a lot of the place I used to live as a child. Well, really the place I lived for the majority of my life. You see, until about a year ago, I lived in the Pacific Northwest, specifically about an hour away from Seattle, Washington. The Pacific Northwest is a region filled with lush trees, steep foothills, rivers and lakes, oh my. Does that sound familiar? Take these Google screenshots of Norway and compare them to Google screenshots from Washington. They could be the same place. And the fact that this game is designed to look like Norway, well, when I play this game, it's like I'm walking around my old home, a place I miss dearly. I don't want to harp on this point too much though. It's only one of the many aspects of my love affair with this game. Even when I lived in Washington, I still loved looking at the scenery in Northern Journey. It's just extra meaningful now. It's so hard to explain why both of these games, are so special to me beyond just saying, game good. I hope I was able to paint some kind of picture, but if you walk away from this video thinking to yourself, wow, that Marcus guy does a whole lot of waffling, I completely understand. At the very least, you'd understand the title of this video. These games are special in a way that's impossible to describe. I don't know if anything I said made sense to anyone else but me. So if you do understand where I'm coming from, if you have played some game in the past that was special in a way that you couldn't describe, let me know about that game in the comments. Try as best as you can to explain why the game sticks with you. And make sure to read other people's anecdotes while you're down there. Sometimes a random story or recommendation can lead you to playing an all-time GOAT of a video game. With all that said, thank you so much for watching this video. Next time, I might make a follow-up to the Comedy of Dark Souls 2 video. Lots of people left great comments in that one reminding me of other things to talk about. If that sounds interesting, stick around, subscribe, and go watch the original. It should be on screen now for convenience sake, as well as in the description. All that said, have a wonderful day, everyone.